From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Well, hello. Hello. Welcome to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton, co-founder of World of Wonder, joined by the inestimable Tom Campbell.
Well, hello, Fenton. Great to be here.
You are our chief creative officer.
And a gem of a person.
Oh, thank you,
Yes,
James.
nice, very nice too. And James and James.
That's me.
Who needs no introduction. Editor of the Wow Report.
Club Kid turned best-selling author. I just love saying that. I feel like I'm taking a plane's taken off.
So, what do we do? We count down the top 10 things that make us go,
Wow.
This week, though, because of Halloween, we are going to count down the top 10 movies that make us go, ooh.
Whoa!
So,
So these are movies that scared us as children. These are movies that still scare us now. These are just terrifying movies
I
to
have
watch.
to say, hand on heart, I have a phobia of horror films.
Me too, which is makes this very hard to do.
Yeah.
Well, but weren't there movies that just traumatized you as children that still stick in your mind? And
And we're going to talk about some of those in just a moment.
Well, without further ado, let's begin the countdown. Number 10.
Number 10.
You know, J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez,
and we're off and running.
is in the news a
Scream
lot
queen.
lately for her. It's a huge Academy Award buzz around her performance in
It
Hustlers.
is. And she's always been a little overlooked because she's been in some gems.
She has, including my number 10 pick for the scariest movie ever made, Boy Next Door, or as I wrote my own theme song for it, Boy Next Door, Boy Next Door. Boy Next Door, Boy Next Door.
Okay, what's it about?
It's from 2015. Because I'm bad, but I still think you can. These are suggestions if you're driving, listening that you could like put on your Netflix or to watch over
okay,
Halloween while you're home, just to get in the mood. And this is Jennifer Lopez is married to John Corbett. She's a teacher.
I love me some John
She has
Corbett.
like a teenage son who goes to the same school where she teaches. Kristen Chenoweth is her best friend sidekick.
Wow,
Eve Arden.
I just listened to some Kristen Chenoweth today.
Yes, and the
her
principal
new
of the
album?
school. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic.
And everything's fine until Ryan Guzman, the actor, who is on your favorite show, 911. He plays the fireman. He's just
smoldering.
He's
Yes,
sex on feet.
yes.
He's just
yeah.
beautiful.
Well, but here he's a teenager in school.
He's 19. He's just moved in with his grandfather's in a wheelchair, and he is the boy next door, boy next door.
Oh, so he doesn't go to school with
Boy
her.
next door, boy next door. He does. He was held back because they just had to make him 19, so J-Lo wasn't sleeping with somebody underage.
right, yeah.
And
The moment his grandfather's in a wheelchair, right? Something's wrong.
Boy next door, boy next door. And there's lots of spoiler alerts, but I think it's okay. Come for the premise, stay for the acting.
Well, but wait a minute. But isn't the takeaway that when they start their affair, he gives her a first edition of the Iliad or the Odyssey or something like that?
There is a moment of a love gift because he's just a teenage boy with a crush on the teacher.
But a first edition of the Odyssey, it was written in 2000 BC.
Can you imagine how many bookstores you'd have to go to till you found a first edition of a song of a book written before Christ was born?
How many lawns you'd have to mow to get the money to buy
How
that?
careful you'd have to be with the parchment paper.
But wait, this must be some ironic thing because there isn't a first edition
Well,
of...
that's just it.
so it's fake.
No. It's
he's
the idiot who wrote the movie who had no idea what he was doing, and he was like, "I need a smart
What's
sounding
the
book."
Iliad or the idiot?
It was the Odyssey, and
I
so.
see.
But he obviously had no idea what he was doing. And he
Odyssey? Odyssey had no idea.
Here are three really important numbers. It got an 11% on the tomato meter on
11%
Yes.
on Rotten Tomatoes.
On Rotten Tomatoes. It got 33% viewer rating, but, and this is my favorite stat, it's 91 minutes long. I love a short movie.
But it is scary.
It becomes, of course, it's a romance sex thriller. It's rated R. There is incredible sex scene. J-Lo always, you know what? She delivers.
She
In
does.
Hustlers. She says, you know what? I got a great body. Let's look at it. Let's look at it up close. And then it turns into sort of Fatal Attraction, and it's so twisted talented, and
Well, if she does end up getting an Oscar nomination or winning the Oscar, as some people are saying, then this is a good movie if you're doing a deep dive with Jennifer Lopez to go back into her oeuvre.
Yes, and at the time, I care more about but it cost $4 million to make. And Jennifer Lopez, who promoted the movie, she doesn't hide when she makes a cheap, bad movie. She promotes it. And she was like, all that money's on the screen. We shared, one trailer, the entire cast. And it made, in its first weekend, it was like the second at the box office, it made like $6 million. So immediately, Jennifer Lopez makes money, and she gets to make her next one. And now she's on her way to getting an Oscar.
I feel like that was kind of like a mini comeback for her,
yes,
too.
it was her
like
biggest hit since a Monster-in-Law.
Right.
But the only reason it's really good is if I sit next to you in a theater or at your home, please call me or text me and I will. And just when the really scary parts happen, you just go, boy next door, boy next door, boy next door, boy next door.
It's a great song, and
Thank
it's
you.
stuck on repeat in my head.
Thank you.
James, number 9.
Number 9.
Number 9, this is a movie that was made-for-TV movie in 1971, okay? So I was about, 6 years old when I saw it. And it's one of those movies that sort of sticks into your yes, of course, how dare you? No, I was 5 years old. I was even younger.
You
weren't
directed
even-
that film.
Anyway, it was one of Steven Spielberg's first movies.
yes.
He had done a Columbo episode, a Marcus Welby episode,
A Night Gallery.
a Night Gallery episode. This was his first big foray into the big time.
So he was probably 5 or 6 himself.
He was young.
He
He
was
was just
very
out of
young.
UCLA.
Yeah, and it was released theatrically in Europe because the Europeans recognized it as a masterpiece of its genre.
Right.
And it has many of the same themes as Jaws later went on to have.
What's the name of the movie?
It's called Duel.
Why is
I'm
it called
sorry,
Duel?
Well, let me sort of set it up a little for you a little bit. There's a man, Dennis Weaver, who's sort of an everyman, and he's sort of his boss is making him go on a business meeting. He has to miss his daughter's birthday. He's on the road. He's angry. He's furious. And he's just sort of like a 70s, angry
Anti-hero a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. And as he's driving, he comes behind a big rig, and the big rig is belching diesel fuel into his car, and he's furious, and he's trying to get around it, and the diesel, he won't let him go. He won't let him pass. He will not let him pass. He goes back behind him. He tries 3 or 4 times. Exactly. Finally, he manages to get ahead of the diesel, and then he takes off, and he thinks that's the end of it. Well, it's not the end of it.
The duel has just begun.
The duel. It's 90 minutes of cat and mouse with the big rig chasing in the car. You've seen this, and a million people have taken off. Have done riffs
So
on
brilliant.
this.
Did he write it?
He did write it, but he also the thing is you never see the truck driver's face.
never.
So
But-
it's like the shark in Jaws, where it makes it more scary. It's a malevolent force of evil that
But
is
you do see
chasing
the
him.
face of Jaws and in this film, the keys, the bunch of keys are like a fetish object. You see the keys dangling,
Yes.
which is very similar to E.T., isn't
Oh.
it? When the people are hunting E.T. in the forest at night, and you just see bunches of keys swishing around.
I
at
wonder
their
what
hips.
keys means to his psyche,
know.
because the thing is
fetish.
because it's this malevolent force of evil, and it becomes a cipher where you can put onto him
Giant penis on wheels.
whatever that's Fenton's
Going through
interpretation.
tunnel after tunnel after tunnel.
Vagina after vagina after vagina. But it's one of those. It really, for years, when we would be driving to Charlevoix or Marianne or something, I would be, "Mommy, no, don't pass it, don't pass the truck, please, Mommy, no," because I would think that every truck was going to come and get us.
Is it like the first movie based on road rage?
It might be.
Could be. Predates Road Warrior, Mad Max, right?
And then going to another Spielberg film, I'm just starting on the one with the dinosaurs, Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
The very last scene, the truck, spoiler alert, the truck goes off the
cliff. And
it
that's
has-
how this ends.
But it has this kind of almost human death scene, right?
Yes,
The spitters and falls.
And that's what happens with this. The truck, spoiler alert, the truck goes
it's like
over
the dinosaur dying.
Was that like a
and the
sequel
truck
to
is
Jurassic
sputtering,
Park?
and it looks like it has a tail, and the headlights are eyes.
Yes.
And yes. And Dennis Weaver is sitting on the edge of the cliff, and he gets to start over his life all
How does he connive it? How does he outsmart the truck?
Well, they're going up a mountain pass or something, and Dennis manages. Dennis puts the book. He puts his book on the
Iliad, the first edition.
Yes, the Iliad first edition on the gas pad, and then he jumps out of the car.
Right.
His car goes over. So everybody thinks that he's dead, and that's why he gets to start his life over.
And now
again.
we don't travel with books; we have ebooks, and so the truck would have won.
Yeah.
Even audiobooks.
But it's also
point
like
out that
Stephen
Dennis-
King did,
oh,
like
sorry.
Christine. You know, what I mean,
After
like
that,
and
after
Stephen
that.
King has done another movie. I think he did a made-for-TV movie about a truck, a malevolent truck.
But and Dennis Weaver just
Yes.
is famous from McLeod. I said for people
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
uh-huh.
cowboy, the
What was it
mustache.
called? Christine?
Well, he
The
did
evil
Christine.
possessed
Yeah, he
car?
did
That's
Christine.
57 Fury
Yeah.
or whatever
Yeah.
it was.
You
Number
know
eight-
this movie. You know this
I
movie.
do know. I yes, absolutely saw it. I mean, it's very dry. It's not very Spielbergian in the sense of what would we
It was
go.
probably
Not
made
that's
for
not
like
a
$100,000
Yes,
at
it
the
was almost
time
a
or
student
something.
movie.
And yeah.
And it sometimes often gets
Gripping.
compared with George Lucas's very early film THX 1.
Oh, that might be the one that I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Anywho,
No, I am. I know what I'm talking about. When I said Spielberg,
darling.
I mean when I said, hold on, you're gonna have to change all of this.
Why?
You're good.
No, when I said Stephen King, I was probably thinking of George
Oh
Lucas.
no, you're right. Stephen King does have a possessed car.
Yeah.
I think it was Christine.
But so does George Lucas.
And then there was
God.
the show My
That-
Mother the Car with Jerry Van Dyke. But I get ahead of myself.
Car Next Door. Car Next Door. Number 8.
Number 8.
Okay, so we're counting down sort of top 10-ish films that made us go, wow. Dawn of the Dead.
Sure.
The
Classic.
second in George Romero's zombie trilogy.
Is this the one in the mall?
The one in the mall. So
It's like an episode of Friends.
1979 came out.
Saved by
I
the
mean, I've
Bell.
been rewatching it, and I have to say, I don't quite know why I was so scared, but what I hadn't
You know why you were
realized was-
scared?
Yes, why?
Because Michael Musto is in it, and Stephen Sabin are
No,
zombies. Yes.
Stop.
They are.
Really? Where do they come? Where do they appear?
In the mall?
No. That's why. So it's set in a mall, and the zombie apocalypse has happened. But what George Romero did that's so interesting is he's the guy credited with making the zombies devour human flesh.
It was his idea.
Because until that point, zombies were just sort of
They
automatons,
they would
undead.
pick at their food. They wouldn't eat
They
much. They were
wouldn't-
they were
Right.
finicky.
They weren't brain
Peckish.
eaters. This is the first
and he
brain eater.
turned it into this sort of parable of consumerism run amok, right? You know, I think the tagline is, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth. And even if to today's sophisticated, even
I mean,
jaundiced...
does this hold up?
Well, you know, probably not, but it reminds you, the zombie idea is so frightening, isn't it? The idea that you're dead and then you come up and you're running around eating people alive. And in fact, I think the zombie form over the years has been refined and it's evolved because now in 28 Days Later and other films, zombies can run at full speed. So that just they've sort of fine-tuned the terror aspect. And even though now it seems a little quaint, then it was I was absolutely terrified.
I was going to say, let's dig it deep into your psyche here. Let's
yes, go on.
let's noodle around in your head for a minute there.
We have 30 seconds left. Keep going. Yes.
What is it about zombies that scares you? Because zombies don't particularly
They
affect
don't?
me. No.
Oh my God. I think the idea of something like the Spielberg truck relentlessly pursuing you, I think
that
that's
doesn't stop no matter what.
Exactly.
Like,
I
you
mean,
can't
that's an
kill
old
it.
classical idea, isn't it? It's the Furies, these
Yes.
things that just pursue you relentlessly, like Terminator, I guess. But what makes a zombie more frightening, I think, than Terminator or a big fuel truck is the fact that when they get you, they'll eat you alive.
And they're already dead, so you kind of can't kill them. Listen,
Yes.
when the zombie thing happened on AMC, when the whole thing, I was like so left behind. I was like, I don't care about zombies. Zombies never scared me. I've never seen this movie. And then I realized zombies, when you listen to it from afar, and it's what you're saying, but zombies is just a way to be racist. It's a way, like immigrants are zombies. You know, it's that fear of
an
other,
invasion,
and
of an overwhelming invasion.
Yes.
It's also a fear, I think, again, of I do think it's a sort of
I'm not
fear
saying that immigrants
of
are zombies,
consumerism,
but
and I think
just
that, you know,
symbolically.
like in the 19th century, everybody was frightened of the vampire was the thing, and
Yes.
the blood sucking, because
Yes.
it was this kind of
And then in the
sexual
50s, it was
congress
the
thing.
atomic age, and there was the
Yes.
space monsters,
Yes.
and Godzillas, and things like that.
Yes.
But I just think there's an oral fixation that you haven't
Oral
resolved.
fixation.
This whole being
Do you
eaten
want to put
is.
your finger in his
But
mouth?
James,
but-
the idea of someone coming up to you, taking a big bite out of you,
Were you
doesn't terrify
breastfed?
you?
Were you breastfed, Fenton? Can we get to the bottom of this?
Do you not find it? You find gherkins frightening. I mean, how does that work?
They are a choking hazard. My sister almost choked on a gherkin as a young girl.
What is a gherkin?
It's a
Oh,
pickle.
Tiny pickle.
A little
Oh.
tiny
Sweet
pickle
pickle.
cucumber. I mean, I'm not even going to touch that in terms of Freudian potential.
Oh, everyone knows too much about everyone here.
But it's set in a shopping mall, and I love this. I mean, I was very much into the sort of crazy, super flat kind of consumer Stepford wife
but I think
mentality.
it's
and I think
coming from
that's what
England
it's-
to America and seeing mid-American shopping habits in
Yeah.
the mall. I think that
Well,
is
just
fascinating
the boat
to you.
ride over the Atlantic must have been
Darling,
life-changing.
We didn't have malls growing up in England.
That's what I'm
True,
saying.
that's
That's what I'm
true.
saying. So that's
Yeah.
something that about Americanism that really
I
strikes a
still
chord with
think
you.
I still think the horror thing is just really.
I think it's
The
all.
zombie thing is hot. I mean, sorry.
Okay.
All right, let's take a quick break. Blake, have you got a question for us?
I do. Do you guys know the movie I Spit on Your Grave from 1978?
No.
It was a video nasty. There was a huge campaign in England against it.
Oh.
Yeah, it was. I've never really seen it, but just the poster has always. I remember it from the VHS
so the
video
poster
store.
depicts a woman from behind, sort of shredded clothing.
She's raped, and what happens is that she turns the table on her
And
rapist,
tortures the
and
rapist.
tortures and kills them and rapes
Okay.
them.
Right.
That was fun. Now, what's the question?
Whose body is this?
Oh.
Who is the model
What year?
in the
What year?
poster? 1978.
Is there a clue?
It was right before she became a mega star.
Okay.
All right, you're listening to the Wow Report on Radio Andy.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
And welcome back to the Wow Report here on Radio Andy. I'm Fenton, joined by Tom and James St. James and Blake. And we're doing a sort of special spooky edition, counting down top 10 films. Well, not films.
Yeah, it's film,
Yeah,
sure,
okay,
sure, of
okay.
course.
Well, I just realized my number 2 doesn't count because it's not actually a film.
Well, we haven't gotten there yet.
Yes, I know. We'll think of something that make us go, woo.
Scary movies?
Scary
Is that what we're
movies.
talking
Thank
about?
you.
We're counting down
Yes,
scary
yes.
movies
Thank
because
you
it's
for the-
Halloween?
Yeah,
Thank
there
you
we
for
go.
the-
All right, good.
I love the clarity and the conciseness.
That's why I like to listen.
We've reached number.
No, we haven't, because I have a codicil to this.
Okay, we have a question, and the question was Blake.
The poster for the 1978 thriller I Spit on Your Grave features a woman walking through what looks like a jungle with a knife, torn
Basically bare
clothing.
naked with her
Yeah.
back facing the
Who
camera.
modeled for this poster
I'm gonna say
before
it-
she was a superstar? Within 5 years, you would know her name.
I say Pamela Anderson.
I was gonna. Okay. I was gonna say Victoria Principal or Suzanne Summers.
Too late for both of them.
Yeah, okay.
Pamela Anderson. I'm going to say, and it's wrong, Cheryl Ladd. I don't know who.
Do you have a guess, Fenton?
Yeah, I said Pamela Anderson.
Oh, okay. It is Demi Moore.
Of course, I'd recognize that butt anywhere.
But listen,
Demi
I have a
Moore.
follow-up to that because there was a remake of I Spit on Your Grave, and it starred a Wild Celebrity in it.
Yeah, I almost asked this too.
Okay, yeah.
Who's the wild celebrity?
Who is the Wild Celebrity? Go ahead.
Must be Michael Musto.
Chloe Sevigny.
Wrong.
Danielle Francese.
Danny Francesi was one of the murderers.
I spit on your grave.
Okay, we're counting down these top 10 films that make us go woo, as in scary films. Number 7.
Number 7.
I didn't realize we were going to have a Spielberg retrospective because we didn't really confer that much before.
Who knew he was
But
a master of horror?
I am going to say Jaws.
Sure.
1975 changed movies as we watch them today in so many ways.
Yes.
Still scary. Fun, I think, at Halloween in October as you have your pumpkin spice everything on to go to the beach and to be horrified. It is a master of suspense. I think a really great horror film has an incredible haunting score, and that obviously John Williams is amazing.
It's based on a Prokofiev song.
Yes, that's right. We talked about
right.
it. Yeah.
And I also love that it starts with those kids kind of naked at the
Very
beach.
70s.
Very sexy.
Yeah.
Girl goes out naked. Like, just that part made me breathless. I told this before, I think, but I watched Jaws in 1975. Our whole family, cousins, we all went to the York Beach, Maine for 2 weeks every year and lived in cabins and stuff. And we went to this big shopping. I mean, before there was like multiplexes, it was my first multiplex in Hooksett. And we were waited in line to see, because it was the hugest thing ever. And just to see that sexiness in the thing. And then the shark starts grabbing her. She's like, "Ooh," going under the water. Ooh, going. That was like, I thought if all the murders are this gruesome because they bite her leg and there's blood.
Right,
I was like, I am not going to make it through this movie. Like, I almost threw up.
Why did the woman in Jaws have dandruff?
What?
I
Is
don't
this a
know.
joke?
She left her head and shoulders on the beach.
Oh! But I do remember my dad had the copy of the book on his nightstand, and the cover of the book terrified me. Yes. But then I remember reading the part where she reaches down to feel her
There's
leg.
a nub. Her
and then
nub.
She doesn't feel her
Yes,
leg
yes,
because she doesn't know that her
yes,
leg is gone.
yes.
Oh,
I
that
remember
scared
reading
me
the book
so
and it
much.
was even
Yes.
scarier.
Yeah.
And it was sexier. It had a lot more subplots. What Spielberg did with Jaws, which was foreshadowed in the movie you're talking about, the Duel, was he basically he said, I'm going to take the first and second act of the book, throw them out, and just really focus on the shark part. Because there are a lot of subplots and all that kind of things. In Peter Benchley, is that his name?
Yeah.
Book. But it's just, and it's also, at the time, they spent like $700,000 in 1975 on primetime TV ads. They hadn't done that before. So it was everywhere.
Well, it was a bestseller, wasn't it?
Yes,
it was a huge bestseller.
And they had like Steven Spielberg go out and do junkets with Peter Benchley to promote the book.
Right.
Like it was all the idea of how large a movie opening could be. And what's his name? Lou Wasserman, who was at Universal forever and ever.
Love me some Lou Wasserman.
It was back in the 70s. A wide release was considered for a really bad movie like Billy Jack or In Search of Noah's Ark. They would release it everywhere because no one would go back the next weekend. And so with Jaws, they had a huge release, but Lou Wasserman closed it down a little bit. He said, I want this movie to last all summer. And he goes, I don't want someone in Palm Springs to see it in Palm Springs. I want them to get in their car and drive to Hollywood. So they purposely eventized
So it didn't
Jaws.
open wide.
Like the shark.
Take a bite of the crime.
Show.
That's all. And it's great. It's the formula that I'm sure others have used, but that Spielberg perfected, that Ryan Murphy uses, right? On American Horror Story, where the first scene is something that grosses you out so much. You spend the rest of the time frightened, and then they just give you dribs and drabs of sort of suspense, and then something at the end. That's kind of Jaws until the last scene.
Well, it's also Halloween or any of the horror films.
Yes,
where
that
you just
first
have,
scene just.
Well, a call back to Dawn of the Dead. Like the first scene is in a newsroom. You don't see a single zombie, but society is falling apart. The zombie plague is happening, and the sense of panic that created marvelously without actually seeing anything, without seeing any entrails. I mean, it's the idea of.
But they kind of grab you. Once they shock the crap out of you at the beginning, they have you for the rest of the movie.
Right.
Jaws, do it for Halloween. Do it for your body.
And I should say, all these movies are basically streaming on all your favorite platforms.
Well,
So-
not my next one.
Oh.
Oh, James. I was going to go next.
What?
With number 6.
Number 6.
You were. I was.
Oh.
We switched. You should be
Boo.
going.
Why would you? Why would you?
Well, because I tell you why.
Do we need James anymore? Can he leave?
It's Open Water. This is a film so terrifying to me that I have never actually watched it.
That you've never gone in the water.
No, Open Water. Do you know Open Water?
Yeah.
It's based on a true life story.
They're left
of
behind.
a couple
yeah.
who go out on a scuba diving trip. Off
That's
the
a
Great
mistake.
Barrier
Never go
Reef.
underwater, people. Never go underwater.
So it's in the tradition of water horror.
Yes.
Water
Good.
terror.
I like it. We have a theme.
And I've never watched it. And then I thought, I
But
can't.
like I said, they go down to deep
right.
dive.
They go down to scuba dive.
Scuba dive. They come back up.
Boat
And the
is
boat is gone.
The boat's gone.
And you see the boat disappearing in the horizon.
So the rest of the movie, they're just treading water as sharks are circling them.
You got it. You
Yeah.
got it. And it's.
But how do you know
absolute-
that? You don't know that. I could be lying.
Well, here's the thing. So I thought I can't come on the show and not have seen it. So having
That would
avoided
never happen.
having avoided this film for many years, last night I had a couple of glasses Chardonnay and I was like, I'm going to watch it. And
You
I watched
did?
it. I watched it.
And were you terrified? Were you
No.
choking? No.
I wasn't. I wasn't. But this is my point, is that the whole idea of the horror is so frightening. I think it's the most effective horror film there is. That you won't even go and see it because the prospect is so terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Don't make a lot of money that way. I'm thinking like Randy on this one. I don't know how you make money on that. But okay.
But indeed, they do. I mean, it has its. But
But wait a minute. No,
here's
hold
the
on.
thing.
Hold on a second. Wait a second.
Were you breastfed?
The terror here. Will you go scuba diving after this?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Ever, never.
Then it is scary.
And my father actually was terrified of the water, and in the Navy, forced himself to learn how to scuba dive as a way of overcoming his fear. I am not that kind of man. I could not confront my fear like that. I am terrified of scuba diving, and I would never do it.
No.
I've been scuba diving in the ocean.
Yeah, and the boat was there when you came up.
It was. Well, I didn't really leave the person's side,
Right,
you
is
know.
there a rope you can hold on to or something?
Well, I just I would never just go off, because wasn't it they went off by themselves
of
and
course,
really weren't supposed
it's
to?
a true story, and they don't completely, truly know what really happened. There was some rumors that
Do
there
they
was some,
survive? They don't survive?
Clearly
they die.
not. If they don't know
this is the
that
thing.
really happened.
Okay, here's the
Spoiler
other
alert.
thing. It upsets the apple carts, spoiler alert, of horror movies, because normally in a horror movie, evil does ultimately get vanquished. You know, the trailer, the truck goes over the edge, you know, the zombie plague is put an end to. In this one, they die. They're just out there in the water, and no one comes to
But
rescue
maybe
them.
it's a message about single-use plastic bottles, and this couple used so many that the ocean swallowed them up.
If it was released today, it would be about
Well,
that.
this wasn't
That would be
long ago.
Aquaman.
Wasn't that long ago? I never saw Aquaman.
It's really terrifying. I mean, I think it
Is
could.
it terrifying or is it not terrifying? Because you said that it wasn't terrifying.
Well, I'm trying
I don't know how we're
to.
going to fix this one on the
I
end.
know. I
You
don't know.
I can't.
How-
There's
so let's
something-
circle back, and now I
We're
feel
counting down the top 10
I feel,
films. and
James.
let's go.
I feel that I am in the water and you are the shark circling me, taking little bites. out of me.
taking
This
little-
segment is pretty horrifying,
I
actually.
think it is truly frightening, the concept. And then when you allow yourself, the reason I had the wine is so I wouldn't feel it, you know, and I was suitably numb. And the concept of being in the water overnight, it could have been scarier, the actual execution of the film, yes, but still the idea is so fundamentally, primally terrifying, I think, that I would still call it an absolutely horrifying idea. And they think maybe there was a murder-suicide pact or there was some other thing, but they don't know because all they found was some half-chewed scuba gear, and I think they once caught a shark and the camera was in the stomach of the shark, that camera, and things of that nature.
Amazing footage they must have gotten.
Oh, and it's only 90 minutes too. Okay.
I love that. Lots of good horror movies are only 90
get it
minutes.
done. Get me scared, get it done.
All right, James, number 5.
Number 5.
What makes you go?
Well, this is another one of those primal fears.
And
that
you
just,
can't find it streaming anywhere. I looked.
Well, we haven't gotten to that part yet. Let me talk about the movie first. Okay. I'm sorry.
I'm sure we can
Well,
all
let
get
me-
al-
let-
we'll
let-
get we'll get along on another show. We don't have to get along
Let
on
me
this
let me
show.
start over. Let me start the whole thing over
It's
again.
good the way it is. It's good to know how one's feeling.
I was in a good mood before I came here.
I
Now
know
I'm
you were.
terrified.
I played Blake.
Always me.
Anyway, this is another one of those primal fear movies, and it's something that's stuck in my psyche all these years, and it's something that terrifies me deep on a primal level, on a primordial level.
That's such a setup for a joke, and I don't have anything.
No,
Go
no, no.
ahead.
It's called Candy Snatchers from 1973, and I'm sure everybody in the listening remembers this movie because
Candy
it's
Snatchers.
it's a classic of its kind. It's one of those movies that I can't remember if this is a real story.
about?
No.
This movie really happened, or I dreamt it.
No, that's just it. Because in the
Not
70s,
streaming. It doesn't even exist.
no, in the 1970s, it was either an urban legend, it was a real story that was made into a movie. I don't know, but I remember my sister would by candlelight, she would come in my room and tell me the story of the Candy Snatchers. It's the story of an heiress who is...
There's an heiress in your story.
It's the story of an
High
heiress.
society lady.
A society dame, like Gloria Vanderbilt, the spitting image. And she's a little hippie girl.
Okay.
But she's kidnapped and raped and beaten, and then she's buried alive. And therein
I
lies.
hate getting buried alive.
Okay, the buried alive thing, because I remember this from a child. I swear to God, this was a true story of a woman, an heiress who was kidnapped and buried alive, and she's in a coffin, and they put a tube in the coffin so that she has air going up, and then once a day he can pour water down the tube, or he puts like some cornflakes down the tube for her to eat, and that for
This is definitely a primal memory.
You know what,
Cornflakes or a
James?
lollipop.
It's true story. A
It-
kid was kidnapped and buried underground. You're absolutely right. It's a
Yes.
true
And
story.
it happened, and I remember being like on the playground. People would say, yes. And so this movie, and it's a '70s movie, and it's very hippy dippy and everything. And the psycho killers, there's 3 of them, and they're very
Yes.
but it really
How bizarre. I just read about this case the other day. I guess maybe there's a I wonder,
Blake,
but
excuse
it's-
me, Blake. Do you feel like we're being punked?
Yeah.
I think
Ashton?
they are practicing the power of suggestion.
In
but
real
don't you-
life,
but
the
don't
whole
you
thing
remember
went
the story?
horribly wrong.
Yes, I think it was
And-
like Paul Getty or something. It was like some big family.
A 1973 exploitation crime cult film directed by Gordon Trueblood.
Oh, Gordon Trueblood. I love a good Gordon
The Candy
Trueblood movie.
Snatchers was first released in June 73 and was unofficially inspired by the kidnapping of Barbara Jane Mackle.
Okay, there you go.
It stars Susan Sennett as a teenager who was kidnapped and held for ransom by 3 amateur criminals.
Yes.
And it received a DVD release in 2005. So if we leave right now and just keep walking around the bins of Hollywood, we will find a copy of
Well,
this
no, I
movie.
did. It was on Turner Classic Movies, so I
okay.
imagine that you could be able to stream it somewhere.
So you have this fear, right?
Yes,
You have this fear, and you watch this film.
Yes.
And does it
Unpack. I mean, literally, I am like chewing my fingernails. I am just shitting bricks the entire time because I don't know if in a former life I was buried alive. You know, like they talk about the bell ringers, and they, that they would have bells outside of the cemetery plots for the people who woke up, and
Right.
they would ring the bells, and that's what
awake.
what is it? It's called. There's a.
I think it's where the Anita Ward song "Ring My Bell" comes from. Boo, the night is young.
But anyway, all these movies like The Vanishing, in which remember he's
Right.
buried alive, and he wakes up in the coffin and
Does
he
this
dies.
image scare you?
Yeah! Oh my God! Yes,
it's 3 people looking over an empty.
Yeah. So anyway, I just Candy Snatchers 1973. If you can find it, watch it. It's terrifying. It will.
And it
unlock-
really exists. I'm here to tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Well, okay. Well, let's take a quick break. Do you have another question, Blake?
I do. It's a two-parter.
Go, I love these two parts.
What is the highest grossing horror film of all time? One. And what is the highest grossing horror franchise of all time?
You're listening to Our Report on Radio. Andy, we'll be right back after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
And welcome back to the Wow Report on Radio. Andy, we are doing a special Halloween spooky edition, counting down the top 10 movies that make us go,
That's my spare piece.
Blake had a question for us for the break.
Yes, what is the highest grossing horror film of all time? And what is the highest grossing horror franchise of all time?
Well, for the franchise, I'm going to say Friday the 13th.
It's The Conjurer.
I was going to say like Annabelle or The Conjure or something recent.
The
Yeah.
Conjuring is the highest grossing horror franchise.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 1.6 billion.
Good God!
I
in
haven't seen
heaven.
any of them.
I've seen a couple of
The
them.
Conjuring and The Nun,
I
too,
couldn't
is
tell
part
you.
of the...
Yeah, I think I've seen the.
And what's the number 1 movie?
What's the highest grossing film? Do you guys want to guess?
Halloween, the first one.
No.
It was recent.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
gotta be
yes.
recent.
It's... Oh, God.
It 2.
Yes, It.
It won. Part
won.
1
It
from
won.
2017.
Really? Well, that's just because movie prices are $23.
It won. Get it? It won. It won.
As opposed to when Halloween was out and it was like
It won one.
$4. I mean,
Okay,
like,
all
you
right.
know,
I
are we
think they
adjusting
adjust.
for-
I think they adjust. You know, Blake does a lot of translating
Adjusting.
numbers
Number
at his desk.
crunching,
Yeah,
yes.
he's always. He always hears in his office that adding machine.
You can hear my nails.
Do you know what the first horror film was, by the way?
Probably Nosferatu or Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. No. What? I was going to say.
Manoir du Diable. And it's 3 minutes long, from 1898 by Georges Méliès, one of the pioneers of cinema. You know.
The Mayonnaise brothers.
Croissant. Attaché.
Okay. Number 4, Tom.
Number 4.
Again, I think we are probably again ill-equipped to be doing horror films, but because I was talking to James briefly about this, and he was starting to shame me at this choice. But I feel like I can't tell the difference between camp and horror. Like to me, it's the same thing. Camp in real life.
But
Camp works for
camp
me.
doesn't terrify you, does it?
I'm scared most of the time. I just have a low level of anxiety that I bring to every experience in my life, including this one. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little edgy. That's why I talk so fast.
But sometimes,
what?
sometimes what was scary back in the 1950s just becomes camp to our eyes now.
Yes, but and I
like
love,
I think this next movie.
Yes, and I'm talking about the movie Straight Jacket.
Yes.
It's from 1964. It's written by the author of Psycho, Robert Bloch, and it's produced by William Castle, who was a big
God
stunt
bless
queen
William.
film.
Yes.
And it stars Miss Joan Crawford, 1964, after when they started making the Hag movies, after Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, which could be on this list too, by the way. And it's sort of a reimagining of the Lizzie Borden thing. She's an axe-murdering mama who killed her husband, an uncredited Lee Majors.
And the first scene is all like in silhouettes or something, isn't it? You just see her with a hatchet going after somebody.
And supposedly her daughter witnesses it. Mom's been in prison, a psychiatric hospital for 20 years, Joan Crawford. And at the beginning of the movie, she's released. And the minute she comes back to town to be with her daughter, who's like a sculptor or pottery, something fabulous, axe murders start happening again. Mama, why are you killing so many people, Mama? And
all I remember from this was that Joan had a fabulous jingling bracelet. It was a charm bracelet that figures into the plot.
the daughter
Pandora?
keeps convincing her, kind of, because she's sort of dowdy now. She's dowdy Joan. Not Joan. Joan Crawford.
But she obviously can't be the murderer.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. And it's a very small cast. But the daughter keeps having, Mama, like, you need to look pretty like you used to. So they put like a garish, like Joan Crawford wig with a big pompadour and like this sundress with big flowers and a jangly bracelet. And so Joan Crawford kind of plays herself. Have you ever seen the meme where you see Joan Crawford listening to Madonna's Vogue? It's like because Joan goes to the record player and puts it on, and then she takes the record and she breaks it.
Oh, yes.
When she says Betty Davis. That's from Straight Jacket. But do you know another twist? I shouldn't tell you the twist. I'll tell you some fun facts, which is...
Well, it's the daughter, obviously.
Yeah.
See, I never see it coming.
Like you said, there's only 3 people in the movie.
I
and you
never
know.
see it coming.
And it's just the
It
way
doesn't
you
matter.
the way you did the daughter's voice. It was just like so creepy.
I never see it coming. I am always just something. So I am scared with
But
these
Joan
things.
is convinced that it's herself. Joan thinks that she's lost her mind the whole time, right?
Of course, and she's playing, and it's a bravado performance by Joan. During its original release, moviegoers were given little cardboard axes as they entered the theater. Those were the days, right?
Well, he was famous for always.
stunts.
He would put the vibrating chairs, and
Yeah.
he'd have the ghost flying down on the wire.
And it was released by Columbia Pictures, which has the woman with a torch, kind of a Statue of Liberty looking person. Except in the closing credits, she doesn't have a torch; she has an axe in her head.
That's hot.
Is off. And then just for James only, everybody else take a break. Crawford replaced Joan Blondell
Oh, I love me some Joan Blondell.
in the role of Lucy Harwood after Blondell was injured at home prior to shooting and could not fulfill her commitment. Crawford negotiated script and cast approval, a $50,000 salary, 15% of the profits, and the actress who was playing her daughter, Anne Helm, was quickly replaced by Diane Baker, who had co-starred with Crawford in The Best of Everything. And Joan just didn't think that Anne Helm, the original actress, was getting the timing and got the picture, so she brought in Diane Baker, who went on to be the senator in Silence of the Lambs.
There you go. There you go.
It's a camp classic. It's also scary, and
But you weren't scared.
I have no idea who did it still. And I saw it.
No, it is scary. That opening scene is pretty scary. It
And
is.
he hatcheting
Like
is
I
another
said-
thing that's pretty brutal. The more visceral like if I hit you with like a phone or something, that's scarier to me than like bombs and nuclear. It's like ow, ow, ow. Keep that axe away from me, James.
Straight Jacket is on Amazon Prime, Vudu,
gay
YouTube, or Google Play, which brings us to number 3.
Number 3.
Number 3, this is another 1970s movie that just scared the bejeebus out of me. I went to go see this one with my brother at a drive-in theater, and drive-in theaters are scary, scary,
Good
scary.
for horror
and
movies.
it's
You're out
very
in your
good for
car
horror
at
movies.
night.
Yeah.
But was it also in the 70s? They were also kind of sketchy places.
Yes.
Like
Slightly,
slightly
you could imagine in the car next to you was an axe murderer or Joan
In the
Crawford.
woods outside.
Yes.
because they weren't aspirational places.
No, but they were like sort of on the outskirts of town, and all sorts of rowdy teenagers would go, and and people would be smoking marijuana cigarettes in their car. It was just like 'cause you
Sneaking in
couldn't do
beers.
anything. People would come in their pajamas, and it was just
Young people having sex.
young people
Fornication.
having sex. Yes, yeah. So anyway, this is called Race with the Devil, and it starred Peter Fonda and Loretta Swit. And
A young Loretta Switch.
From
MASH.
And Lara Parker, who went on to be my teacher, my professor at NYU.
Larry Parker.
Lara Parker, a woman named Lara Parker, and she was my professor.
She must have been thrilled you'd seen her in
Was
Race
she-
with the Devil.
But she talked about it. She would always say, when I was in Hollywood, and then Peter Fonda and I were making Race with the Devil, and that's how every episode or every.
How does that tie into underwater basket weaving?
Well, we'll get. That's the whole other story. But anyway, so this is
Stay
this movie.
tuned, everyone.
Yeah.
Those two dots are about to be connected.
Yeah. But anyway, so this movie there is two couples and they're in an RV, which was a big new thing in 1975, and they were going across country. You're
right.
Yeah. No, people they're in RVs.
Not a camper, an RV.
Yeah.
Got it.
And so they're in South Texas, and they pull off to the side of the road to go to the bathroom or whatever, stop for the night, and they hear something in the far distance, and they start walking through this field, and they hear a chanting, and it turns out that
Satanic sacrifice.
they're watching a satanic ritual, and they witness a murder, and as they start, they're in the
Right.
hiding in the bushes.
And of course, they give themselves away.
They give themselves
I haven't
away.
even seen this
Yeah,
film.
it's true. Oh, I thought you
I
know
didn't
what
see
was
any of
happening.
it coming.
No. But so anyway, so they see it, and a chase ensues with the satanic, the cultists, and they're chasing them down the highway in this RV, and everywhere they go, and this is the kiki. This is the scary part.
Right.
Everywhere they go, people stop.
And stare.
They turn and give them this malevolent stare. They're at the grocery store, at the gas station. Everybody, all of a sudden, everywhere they go, everything is silent. And they go to a hotel and they're in a swimming pool. And by God, I can't go to a hotel swimming pool anymore because of this. Because everyone stops swimming and turns and stares. And you don't realize whether it's just everybody in South Texas is a Satanist, or whether it's Satan is like working through the people to let them know that there is no escape.
But do you think it's also on the coasts, the fear of the middle, the fear of the flyover states?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
the
Well,
idea
it's-
of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre type thing.
And especially this is, Deep South was very scary
But
back then.
starting in the 80s, you spent 2 decades with people just stopping and staring at you, right?
Well,
you
that-
lived
but
this
that-
movie.
So I keep thinking that like the Satanists are coming after me. When I would be walking down Avenue D in a tutu in Tierra, and people would stop and stare, I would think it's Satan. Satan, they're coming to get me. But then
They thought the same thing.
Explains everything.
So anyway, I'm gonna give the spoiler right here
Yeah,
because it's the ending that's just the so they think that they've escaped the cultists. They're running down the street, and all of a sudden they stop for the night, or they run out of gas or something. I can't remember. But anyway, you see from a bird's eye view of the RV, and all of a sudden a ring of fire goes around it, and all of a sudden you hear the chanting, and they're surrounded by the Satanists, and that's the end. They die.
Satan wins.
Yeah, you can't escape Satan.
Hail Mary, full of grace, Lord is with you. Blessed art thou amongst women.
Now that again is the Furies, isn't it? That's the Furies being pursued, the
Unstoppable.
relentless pursuit, the unstoppable.
Sounds
Yeah.
like The Hills Have Eyes to me, too.
Well, I think it's a precursor to a lot of horror films and a lot of things that happen. But I mean, and then I remember as we were driving home that night, my brother was like, "Oh my God!" and he would like drive really fast down the highway, and he was like, "We're being chased!
To mess with you, or is he really
to
messed?
fuck with me?" Because I do remember, I've told this story a number of times, how I was lost in the woods with him one time, and it was at nighttime, the night was falling,
Scary.
and my brother was like, "Oh, turning into a werewolf!" And he would and I was like screaming and crying and trying to find the road, and I couldn't. And my brother was chasing me through the woods, pretending to be a wolf.
God.
He was he really could just.
In the morning, James woke up and there were bloody bedclothes next to his brother's bed. And he had no memory of it whatsoever.
So anyway, this is a movie. It's another one just being chased down a highway.
Chase-
I'm terrified
right.
of being chased
The
down
Furies.
a highway.
Yes. Number 2.
Number 2.
I know I'm on thin ice here, but I was like
There are
trying to
no
think,
rules here at the WoW
what
Report.
is the current most scary? What is the
What's
horror
scaring
film that
you?
reflects the horror of today? Of this sort of rampant.
Where are we going with this? I haven't
Twilight.
looked. I don't know what's
my
happening.
Facebook feed, perhaps? My Facebook feed?
Succession.
Again?
Yes, again, because it is so.
The HBO series.
People say this HBO series is a comedy. I don't think it is a comedy. I think it is truly terrifying.
So we're just throwing all the rules out here. Everything just goes to hell in a handbasket.
Okay. If
tell
you
me
want,
how it's
if
scary.
you want, if
Tell
you
me how it's
prefer, I
scary.
can talk to you about Crawl. Have
No,
you seen
no,
Crawl?
No, I
I
want to
wanna
hear
see- I wanna see- I wanna
Work
see where
it.
you're
Connect the
going.
dots. Connect
Yes,
the dots.
do it.
Well, it's actually called chromatophobia. Do you know what chromatophobia is?
Wait, are we still talking about?
Yes, we are still talking
I
about
haven't had
Succession.
it. I've never had it.
Chromatophobia.
The
What do you
fear
think
of cream soda.
fear of money. And it's not just oftentimes it's a fear of not having enough money, but it can also be a fear of having too much money. And I think this is a horror series, I should say.
This is something that Fenton knows a lot about, does he?
I think the Murdochs are a real, true life sort of horror. It's a horror show.
Yeah.
And it really, as I watch it, I literally, my toes curl. I suppose in a way, actually, I would also put The Comeback in the category of horror. Notionally funny, but truly
The Comeback freaked
terrifying.
me out.
It
the
is
first time.
terrifying.
I couldn't watch it all because
it's
me.
about
hard.
anxiety and existence in a
Is
way
it
that...
weird? Because I haven't watched this yet, so do I really need to?
Oh, I'm afraid you do, because it is like
For Halloween.
such evil, dark people. It is like a pack of wolves that they've sort of gathered together. It's not just normally in these situations. It's normally just the patriarch is, say, the evil person, and everybody else is under his spell.
But
isn't
isn't
this-
Almost everybody
It's a whole
in this
brood of
is
evil
a
children.
brood of
Oh, that's
evil,
fun.
That's sort of like Dynasty.
satanic
but-
pups.
It's like going from the real world on MTV to Bad Girls Club. You take the one bad
Exactly.
person and just fill a house with them.
Exactly. And Crystal,
Help
at
me.
least in Dynasty, Crystal was nice, and there were some notionally nice
Sure.
people.
Yeah.
But
Or
this
torn.
is devoid.
Trumpian. It's Trumpian,
of-
right?
It's
It's all
very. It is
Murdochian
the
and
nightmare that
Trumpian.
we're currently living in.
But,
Yes.
don't we need a little distance before we can really identify or really work with what's happening now? Because we're so mired in it
But
right
it's
now.
more the
we don't
Murdoch
wanna-
family is
It's
sort of what it's
and they've been around for
inspires it.
decades, and
Okay.
it's their grip
Because
on the
it's like
media,
Which has led us to this place.
And there's plenty
hand
of
in hand.
murder. There's plenty of in the sort of House of Cardsian way. There's dead bodies everywhere.
But I've been saying that Ryan Murphy really isn't reading the room by having this politician,
politician,
where I don't think that people want rich people acting like brats right now because it's too close to home.
Right, very good point. But I think you make an also fascinating point that American Horror Story, for example, Ryan Murphy, has become this catch-all of every horror trope with which we are familiar. And I think it also betrays the fact that all those tropes have kind of lost their power. And so if you're looking for the horror, where is the horror?
Right.
And I think the horror today is in this sort of corporate malfeasance, these people who've been completely hollowed out by money, and they are virtual zombies just eating each other alive, or in this case, the undead eating the dead. And it's really, truly dark and terrifying. And I have to say, I'm a wuss. I can't watch a psychological horror film to save my life, but this, I am waiting. When Sunday begins, I am counting down the minutes till 6 o'clock when it is uploaded on the HBO Go.
Well, it's
or
all
HBO
there
Now.
on HBO Go to catch up on 2 seasons,
It
right?
is, yes. James, honestly, I think
I haven't seen it.
We
I think we both need
neither.
to.
I think you both need to. Yeah.
Well, we've talked about how much we love Kieran. He's just one of my favorite people.
He's very,
on the
very
planet.
good.
Yeah.
And there are some lines in that they're talking about something being slick, and they say slicker than cum on a dolphin's back. Isn't that just so wrong that anyone would even think that?
And
to
then
say
repeat
that
it on the radio when people are driving with their children.
Exactly. Cars veering off the road.
Slippery.
This is the gothic horror of capitalism, I think. Right? So that's it. Let's take a break. When we come back, we will reveal the number one horror movie that makes us go,
Wow. Ouch. Scared, mama.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hey, welcome back. You're listening to the Wow Report on Radio Andy. I'm Fenton here with Tom and James. I just have to say this before we go any further. Two huge things. Halloween always to me signals the end of the year. It's in sight.
Well, not only is it the end of the year, it's the end of the decade.
right? Oh, good Lord.
I hadn't really thought about
yeah,
that.
we are coming into 2020, which is a science fiction number to me.
Right, and
Right.
that means bell bottoms are going out and something new's coming in.
Well,
The
let
Roaring
me tell you.
20s. Beaded flapper dresses.
Two huge things are coming in 2020.
What?
RuPaul's Drag Race Live in Las Vegas.
Oh, right. Yes.
That's right.
Tickets are on
Exciting.
sale now at RuPaul's
At the Flamingo,
DragRaceLive.com at the Flamingo.
It's
yeah.
like an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race with stars from RuPaul's Drag Race, but it's a musical and there's lip syncs for your life, and it's a blast.
And it's starting in January.
Yeah.
And will there be guest stars?
Yes.
Well, there's going to be queens, huge queens from RuPaul's Drag Race that will be part of the cast, and that will change every now and then.
And then the other huge thing that is coming in January in 2020 to start the decade with a bang is RuPaul's Drag Con UK.
drag convention. We've had them in New York. We've had them in LA. They've been incredibly popular. Now we're having one in London in recognition of the finale of RuPaul's Drag Race UK.
So it will have, the UK finale will have finished by the time that
Yes.
starts.
It will have
Okay.
finished. You'll just have had time for Christmas and the turkey and the presents and New Year's, and then you'll need a
Boxing Day.
But you know
A
how
Boxing Day.
I was lucky enough to go to London this year to produce, help produce the RuPaul's Drag Race UK, and I realized I hadn't been there for decades. And if you're looking for an excuse to go to London, and everyone should go to London, especially if you're in New York listening to this, jump on the plane, go to RuPaul's Drag Race UK, and have fun in London. Go to the West End, and just it's so much fun.
It sparkles and everything nice.
Yeah.
All
is,
right.
is Horse Meat Disco still around?
I'm not.
Heaven, GAY, any of those?
GAY is.
Yeah,
Heaven
okay.
is now GAY.
Oh, okay.
All right. So, what is the number one horror movie in honor of Halloween?
Yeah, what is it? What did we decide?
Well, you know, I just want to go ahead.
Number 1.
It swept the Oscars that year.
It did.
Oh, did right.
It had not one but two very scary serial killers in
This
it.
is Blake's. This is kind of Blake's choice, and it's good because I think we didn't do a definitive list. We've done our own kind of crazy, wacky, wild
Yeah,
list.
yeah.
And number one is Silence of the Lambs.
Yes.
It is kind of definitive.
It is.
It scared the shit out of me when I was little. It was the one that has scared me
Now,
the most.
how old were you in 1990? Was it 91?
I think it was 88
Oh, was it
or
88?
89.
89? What year
I mean,
was
I
it?
was like 6 or 7, but I think I saw it when I was 7 or 8, and
Those are the years that will
It-
forever
Well,
scar you.
It
That's
was-
right, actually, because the London Underground. They had Yetis in Doctor Who on the London Underground. How could you be terrified at that? I was shitting
I was going to say,
myself
you
at
still
6 or
talk
7.
about
Yeah.
the
Yetis on the
no,
the Cybermen.
No, the other ones, the
Yetis.
Daleks, the
The
Gaelic.
Daleks. Oh my God!
Silence
Exterminate.
of the Lambs
Exterminate.
is a 1991
91.
neo-noir psychological
Neo-noir.
thriller, is what it's called.
it had Dr. Hannibal Lecter, the famous cannibal, which I thought was terrifying.
little Yancy and
You were scared of zombies, dead people eating people. I was scared of cannibals.
Hey, it's our favorite topic here on the Wow Report.
Yeah.
Cannibalism. Yay!
And
I
it
had with
also
some fava beans and Chianti.
had Jane Gum, the serial killer that Clarice was trying to track down, who that last scene where they're in the dark and he has on the
Wait, I
The
thought it
night
was Buffalo
vision.
Bill. I thought they were.
Buffalo Bill is Jane Gum. That's his real
Oh,
name.
and that's you put the lotion in the basket.
Yes.
You put the lotion down here.
I thought it was terrifying.
And it's
the
all
book
based
is
on
even
a
scarier.
true story.
Well,
isn't it?
it's kind of like based on Ed Gein, I think,
Right.
like that.
So
part
he
of
would
it.
now-
skin his victims.
Isn't there a
ornamental.
TV series on CBS coming up this week or something that
think-
starts about what's it called? Prodigal Son, and it's
Oh,
just sort of
yeah.
the same thing about a serial killer father, and the son is a detective, and it's
It's a 3-camera sitcom, and they live next door to Cedric the Entertainer. It's crazy. It's crazy what goes on. You won't believe the culture clash. It makes me laugh and it makes me think. Just underlining what Blake said at the beginning, it won an Academy Award in all top 5
Nothing
categories.
in my lifetime has done that.
Best
since
Picture,
then.
Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Adapted Screenplay.
Wow.
And if you know, there's a
and
chance
yet
you
it
haven't seen
really didn't deserve Best Picture or Best Director.
Just when we come to a happy ending to our show, James comes roaring out of his cage. By the way, this movie sucks. Why are you listening to this show? Don't listen to us at all.
But I think James has a point that rarely do the best movies win the Academy Award.
That's another
Hey,
show.
right.
We got
Oh,
another
okay.
shit.
Oh, well,
Save that bitter
Poor
remark for another show.
directors. You know, who is it up against? That's what I wanted. Who is the director that it was up against?
Thanks
Who
for
won?
tuning into the Wow Report on Radio Andy Sirius XM. We'll be here all day, all evening, all night arguing about this. Hey, listen to previous episodes on YouTube channel Wow Presents, or you can listen anytime on the whatever it is.
Burnt out. He's burnt. He's like, whatever.
Got it.
Yeah. Listen
Yeah.
anytime on the Sirius Radio app. Yes. Same time, same place next week. Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go.
Wow. For the YouTube, we're going to continue because the other nominees against Silence of the Lambs
Yes.
for Best Picture were JFK,
Okay.
Bugsy,
Okay.
The Prince of Thieves with Barbra Streisand.
I love
So
that.
will it. And a little movie called Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, so it really should have won
Beauty
Best
and the
Picture.
Beast was
No. It should have won Best Picture. I agree with you. But I want to know directors that year because.
All right.
Sorry,
This is
sorry.
really. If you're glad you're watching this on YouTube.
James, do you know what ferrotrophobia is?
Fear of Farrah Fawcett's.
fear of caskets, coffins, and being
Oh,
buried alive.
Yeah. What is it called? Ferrophobia?
Ferrotrophobia.
Ferrotrophobia.
Okay, I have Best Actors, 1992. Up for nominations are Robin Williams.
But it was
for-
91.
But the Oscars happened the next year.
I thought you said it was from the 91
It's
Oscars.
91. It's when it's
90 movie
released,
was
and
91,
then
so
the
then the
Oscars
Oscars are
happened in
in March.
92. Don't make me punish you on YouTube.
Okay.
I will. Robin Williams for The Fisher King.
No.
Warren Beatty, Bugsy.
No.
Robert De Niro, Cape Fear.
Maybe.
Nick Nolte, The Prince of Tides. He was so well lit. You know what I mean?
I know.
And the winner goes to Anthony Hopkins, Silence of the Lambs. It's
I
kind of a
would-
memorable.
But I do think that De Niro and Cape Fear is pretty
Yeah,
fantastic.
but I would say that even more. This is more than an exception. Now, Best Actress categories are Laura Dern for Rambling Rose,
maybe.
Gina Davis for Thelma and Louise,
Oh well, now that come on,
Susan Sarandon for Thelma, Louise,
come on.
Bette Midler for The Boys,
I love that movie.
and the Oscar goes to Jodie Foster, The Silence of the Lambs.
Most memorable, yeah.
okay.
So Thelma and Louise kind of cancel each other out, probably.
I'm
Yeah,
glad
probably.
Susan Sarandon win.
Best Supporting
Well, we
Actor.
didn't know that at the time. We
did
loved
not
her
go
still.
to anybody, so I don't have to even do that category. Although it was. Famous time. Harvey Keitel for Bugsy, Michael Lerner for Barton Fink, Ben Kingsley for Bugsy, Tommy Lee Jones for JFK, and the winner was Jack Palance for City Slickers.
Oh, and he did the famous.
Yes, but
yeah.
isn't that where?
He gave it the next year. He gave it to Marissa
that's
Tomei.
right, that's right. Thank you.
It was the Queen was doing.
Legania.
Kitty Boys.
Have we gotten to director?
I'll get there. I'll
You're
get
gonna
there.
relive the entire.
But I do. We need to hear this. This is something important to me.
Best Director.
You know?
Yamini Czar. Ridley Scott for Thelma and Louise.
Yeah, maybe.
Barry Levinson, Bugsy.
No.
John Singleton, Boys in the Hood.
Maybe.
Sad. Oliver Stone, JFK.
No, I guess it
Well,
really
it went
was.
like this. And then Jonathan Demme, The Silence of the Lambs.
See, I don't think that Jonathan Demme has the gravitas to be an Oscar-winning director. I do think it should have gone to.
But he does have an Oscar for Best Director, and you don't.
And also, he's passed now, so you don't want to be.
You don't want to
I
be
think
that.
it
You
should
don't
have
want to be
gone
that
to John
person.
Singleton,
How about
frankly.
Best Adapted Screenplay? Nominees are
Bugsy, Prince of Tides.
Fanny Flagg, Fried Green Tomatoes. Pretty good year for movies.
Love that movie.
Becky Johnston, The Prince of Tides, which was lit beautifully. Pat Conroy, The Prince of Tides. Carol Sobieski, Fried Green Tomatoes. Hey, group them, people. Zachary Sklar, JFK.
Did he play
Agnieszka Holland, Europa, which I've never seen, but I love any.
Oh, I love Europa.
Okay,
Europa.
okay.
There's a hot boys in that.
Oliver Stone, JFK, and the winner is Ted Talley, Silence of the Lambs.
Well, that was a sweep for Silence of the Lambs, then.
It was. Wow. It's hard to end now that we've ended. We've already ended, so we have to end twice.
Till next time.
Go out and do something where words go, ooh.